What's happening, everybody? Greg Ehrenberg here from Stochastic, and we're going to break down the upcoming So Rare slate. This one is going to be running from Friday through Sunday, and a little bit different from what we see in the Monday through Thursday slate, just because we aren't seeing any teams that play 3 games in this upcoming slate. The majority of teams play 2, some play 1. We're going to talk about all of that in a little bit here. But as you guys come in, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you are signing up at So Rare for the first time, use the link that we have below, because when you use that link, the first 5 limited card players that you purchase, you are going to get a 6th one for free. Great way to help build out your collection of So Rare cards, and also makes your lineups a little bit better. It gives you more options to build those lineups out. And we're about to break down my favorite plays for the upcoming So Rare slate. And let me pull this up on screen right here. There we go. So these are the projections we have over at stochastic.com. They're totally free for you to use. You just have to head on over to stochastic.com. I'll show you guys where to find these projections. You go to our NBA tab. You go to free NBA DFS data, So Rare NBA DFS projections, and this was what you'll find on that page. What this information means. The projection, this is how many fantasy points we project each player to score for the upcoming slate, the last 10 average. This is the players' salaries. Well, the equivalent of the salaries anyway. Last 10 average is actually just how many fantasy points each player averages over the course of the last 10 games. But it is the cost of each player to build your lineups within the salary cap, and it is the equivalent of what the dollar salary of somebody is on DraftKings or FanDuel. And then we've got the value column. This is how valuable the individual players are relative to the projection, the last 10 average, just the differential between the two. The higher value score, the better the value. The lower value score, the weaker a player is for an upcoming slate. So something to keep in mind as you guys look at this data. And I'm going to tell you now my 5 favorite plays for So Rare for the upcoming slate. Let's get to it. And I'm going to start at the top of the board with my favorite pay up option we have. That is Anthony Davis. Relative to cost right here, look, we've got him projected for nearly 60 fantasy points, but compare that to some of the players who have a similar projection, whether it be Joel Embiid, Damian Lillard, Nikola Jokic. Look, these players all project fairly similarly, but Anthony Davis cost 51, whereas we got Embiid at 58, pretty pricey. Damian Lillard at 58, Jokic at 55. So we actually have a slightly higher projection on Anthony Davis than we do on Dame or Jokic, but he's less expensive. And the other thing to really keep in mind here is that LeBron James remains out for the Lakers. The Lakers are fighting for a playoff spot. They're fighting for a play-in spot just to get a chance to make it to the playoffs. And they're relying on AD. He's playing big minutes. He's actually relatively healthy right now, which we can't always say about Anthony Davis. With 2 games on the upcoming slate, he's my favorite pay-up option for us to look at. Now let's go down a little bit in terms of the pricing, because the next guy, like DeMar DeRozan. So if we look at DeRozan, who we have projected for, I'll spell his name out a little bit more so we get him on the screen by himself here. DeMar DeRozan, his upcoming projection, 44, last 10 average, 34, good for a value differential of 10.61. And another thing with DeMar DeRozan, and this is going to be something I'm going to highlight with a bunch of the players here, and I talked about it with Anthony Davis. We have some of these teams like the Bulls that are fighting for a play-in spot right now, and for that reason, the key guys are playing a bunch of minutes. Listen to this recent workload for DeMar DeRozan. Last game against the Kings, he played 40 minutes. The game before, 39, 38, 38, 36, 37, 35 minutes. So we are now seeing upper 30s to even as high as 40 minutes in DeMar DeRozan's last game. This is what the Bulls are doing to make a playoff push. And teams have the ability to do this because there's only, 15 or so games left in the regular season. We are going to see teams that are fighting for these playoff spots, that are playing in high leverage games, run their stars into the ground. That is certainly something that looks like it's going to happen with DeMar DeRozan, making him one of the better plays for the upcoming So Rare slate. The next player I'm going to be looking at, same sort of scenario, Bam Adebayo, who, it would help if I spelled his name right here, wouldn't it? There we go. Bam Adebayo. Another guy who, a really weird stretch for Bam, where he went through this spell where he just didn't really have a whole lot of usage, wasn't scoring a ton. We also saw that from Bam not all that long ago in the playoffs last year, if you guys recall. And I do think we're going to see Bam get more to playing like himself in the upcoming games. And the Heat, unexpectedly a team, they're not a lock for the playoffs. This is a team that actually, if the playoffs started right now, they would have to be through the play-in tournament in order to make the playoffs. So another guy in Bam Adebayo, listen to his recent minutes. Last game against Memphis, it was a blowout. Still played 33 minutes, but the games before that, 37, 42, 37 minutes for Bam Adebayo. Like I said, his usage had waned a little bit in some recent games, although did get back up to 29% in the Heat's last game. And I do think we're going to see a really big role for Bam Adebayo, who's an excellent fantasy producer, now that we're seeing the Heat have to give him extra minutes to push for the playoffs. For reference, we have seen for the season, Bam does play a ton already, as is 35 minutes, but over the last week, he's actually averaging 38 minutes per game. Those 3 extra minutes for players who average over a fantasy point per minute, you're looking at an extra 5 or so fantasy points. Makes a pretty big difference when you start adding up some of those minutes. The next player that I'm looking at, and 2 left, and these are 2 of my favorite values. The next one, I mean, this is just a guy who I think he's been in how many, like 3, 4 so rare slates in a row that I've covered. And here I'll just sort by the value scores here. Tyus Jones, once again, one of the best values that we have on the slate. And I don't really have anything to add other than what we talked about the last few times that Tyus Jones has been covered on this video. And it's that he is playing a massive role in the absence of Ja Morant. Morant is expected back sometime next week. There's been all kinds of weird circumstances surrounding Morant. Nobody knows exactly what it is he's dealing with, but he's been suspended. He's eligible to return sometime next week. And in the meantime, we've got Tyus Jones as a starter, playing 33 minutes per game, averaging 18 points, averaging 7.5 assists, averaging 3 rebounds per game. All that equals to him being projected for over 40 so rare points for us in the upcoming slate. And the price still hasn't caught up with him. The last 10 average of 27. Here's what's funny about Tyus Jones. By the time that Ja Morant comes back, Tyus Jones' price will finally have caught up with him on so rare, and then we're not going to care about Tyus Jones anymore. But at least for now, he's going to look good for one more slate. Then Ja Morant's going to come back when Tyus Jones is finally appropriately priced, and it's not going to matter at that point. But for this week, we're playing Tyus Jones again. And then finally, our top value projected player of the entire slate is Jusuf Nurkic. And just with the way that some of the salaries work out over on SoRare, when you get a player that's returning from injury and then starts to have their minutes ramped up, they're almost always going to project really well, because that's the situation we have with Nurkic, where he is a really good points per minute fantasy producer. His minutes have also been erratic this year, but they were really low when he was coming back from a calf injury. So we saw over the course of the last 4 games, a game where Nurkic only played 10 minutes and another game where he only played 18. Last game, though, his minutes finally got up to his normal run. 28 minutes last time against the Knicks. If we're going to regularly start to see 28 to 32 minutes for our Jusuf Nurkic, he just goes back to being a guy that averages well over 30 fantasy points per game. That's how we have him projected for in the upcoming slate. 2 games he plays, we have him projected for 35.3, and his last 10 averages all the way down to 19 because of some of those games that he played with limited minutes, also including the last game he played prior to getting injured. He only played 2 minutes in that game. So that's something that's really going to drag down somebody's overall salary over on SoRare, making Nurkic our top projected value of the entire slate. So just recapping my 5 favorite options: AD at 51, DeMar DeRozan at 34, Bam Adebayo at 31, Tyus Jones at 27, and then Jusuf Nurkic at 19. If you guys haven't signed up at SoRare yet, go ahead and use the link below, because you're going to purchase 5 limited player cards, beginning the 6th one, totally for free. And then also, if you guys haven't done yet, do me a big favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Good luck, and I hope you guys have a great weekend.